All right, fail time. Video number 2 of the fail time series. We're working on parallaxing background part 2 because we did not accomplish our goal the last time we set aside an hour to do this. Let's go down to our bottom monitor here, and our recordings for this video are going to go in this Businessman Dan folder, which I don't know if this is the right folder anymore, but yeah, because Businessman Dan, it's going to be like a game we're falling through the sky. And we're going to set our timer right now. We're just going to go right fucking now, because I'm fucking sick of this. And so, if I wanted to be more generous, I would start the timer once I have my project ready. But I'm not feeling generous right now. So, first of all, we want to open up Godot, right? So to open up Godot, we're going to go Windows E folder. Sorry, Windows E. My shortcuts are broken, so we're going to have to go SREXE, and then find Godot. And then we have the .NET and regular version of Godot. We're going to go open up the regular version of Godot. It doesn't take an installer or anything. You can just directly use the exe, which is nice. Now that we've opened up Godot, we'll put this down on the bottom monitor here. And we want to make another project, and we're going to name it the same thing that we named it yesterday. Project name underscore APB001. And APB stands for Attempt Parallax Background. So I want to put a note in my shortcuts. APB means, and APB, Attempt Parallax Background. That's what that stands for, right? So I want that in my notes so that, you know, later on when I'm like, what the fuck is this abbreviation for? I know what that means. So we're going to go new, and we're going to call this project name APB002. Now, why we're putting project name in the front of this is because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing yet. And so in order for me to know absolutely that this token is project name here, I want to literally put project name on front of it. Now, why do I care? Well, it's because when we browse here, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the S drive, R drive, Git repos, and then a folder called BizDan for Businessman Dan. And inside of our fuck this folder, which maybe we should rename to fail time, since that's kind of what we're calling this series, we have this attempt parallax background folder. There's nothing in here. It says CAPB folders because APB stands for attempt parallax background. So if we go back one more, we see APB001, and that's not what we want. We want this outermost folder here. So let's go create a folder, though. Let's create a folder. Let's call it APB002. And this folder, the folder that we're in right now, APP, attempt parallax background to APB_002. Let's select this folder. So here's why I want this project name to have project name APB, and this just says APB002, because now if I see this token in the code, I know it's from the actual folder. If I see this token in the code somewhere, I know it's from the project name, right? So it's kind of like, you know, if a teacher was to tell you the difference between multiplication and addition, and the example problem they used was 2 plus 2 versus 2 times 2, but they both equal 4, you don't know what tokens do what, right? The plus and the minus seem to do the same thing, right? So we just want to differentiate our tokens so we know what's going on. I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense. Let's make this for mobile. Let's not use any Git version control because this is inside of a larger Git repo. And let's go create an edit. And it looks like it's relaunching, but I'm assuming that it's relaunching and opening our project this time. So it's relaunching on my main monitor, so that's why you don't see anything right now. It's still spinning up. I'm gonna bring it down here once it's created the project. Okay, so now that we have this project, we know that we want a 2D scene. So right here we have the 3D view, we have some type of script view, we have an asset library, and we have a 2D view. So like up here, right? 2D, 3D, script, asset. 2D, 3D, script, asset. 2D, 3D, script, asset. Okay, so we're going to make sure that 2D right here, right? 2D right here, we want that highlighted. And then also, do I have this on screen? Yes, I do. So 2D right here is highlighted. And right over here, we're going to go from 2D over here. We're going to move our mouse on over here to this thing that says 2D scene. Let's go click 2D scene right here. And when we click 2D scene, right, we click 2D scene, and that went away. And it created this node 2D. And I'm going to call it N2D. I'm going to, like, name my nodes in I want to name my nodes all capital, I think. Or do I want to do that? We could do all capitals or all lowercase. Usually in my other code, I use like data is all lowercase and functions are all uppercase. But for Godot, I think I want my nodes all capital so that when I'm looking at the code in a script or something, if I see this all capital kind of thing here, I know that it's like my stuff. Now, I think that the main node where we're going to have our parallax should be like the world node. I don't know for sure, right? I don't know for sure how the organization should work, but I think that the parallax background makes sense as part of the world. So we're going to right-click and add child node, and there should be parallax background and then parallax layer, right? So parallax, we don't want parallax layer, we want a parallax background. Okay. And then on top of this, we're going to add child node, and we're going to add a parallax layer and create that. Okay. And I'm going to go rename this. I'm going to go rename it, and I'm just going to call it parallax background, right? And then I'm going to call this one, I'm going to go rename this one too. Parallax layer. I'm going to rename it to all capital, so that way when I'm looking at a script or something, I know that I'm looking at these, right? Think of them as constant, right? These nodes, there's like one instance of the node in the game, therefore it's like a constant, and a constant would be in all capitals in certain coding conventions. But mostly it's just so that I know that I'm looking at my things rather than a keyword or something. So next thing I want to do is we need to actually create some type of asset for this, right? So I'm going to go with Windows E because my fucking shortcut scripts are broken. We're going to go S drive, R drive, exe folder, PDN for paint.net. And we're going to go open up paint.net.exe. And we're going to create a 2048 by 2048 background image. Now, why 2048 by 2048? Well, it turns out that the parallax background only manages, I don't know how many, we're going to find out, but the parallax background code may only create one image and a duplicate image, or it might create one image and 3 duplicates. It depends on if it is only going to properly parallax on one axis or both axes, right? So the parallax, right, you have an image like this and you want to parallax to the right, it's just going to clone this image, and then as this image moves over to the left, once it's moved too far over to the left, it gets moved over to this side, right? And then, right, so you always have 2 images that are just scrolling backwards, right? So parallax is just cloning the image once, but I don't know if it's doing it once, and so you only have 2 copies, or, so this would be like, this would be the copy 1, and this would be copy 2, and this would be copy 1 over here, right? I don't know if you only have 2 instances of the image, or if you have something more like, you have the original here, and then you have this for parallaxing on the X, this for parallaxing on the Y, and this for diagonal, right? And so you have your original image, and then you have your X copy, you have your Y copy, and then you have your XY copy. Right? I don't actually know how it's implemented. But what I do know is that if you take these 2 parallax images, the total length of the original and the copy needs to be greater than your viewport in order for this to work. So what that means is that if we want it to work on all monitors, I've noticed that 4096 by 4096 is larger than any high-definition monitor out there. So if we want the total area to be 4096 by 4096, this whole thing right here, then we need half of 4096 by 4096, which is 2048 by 2048. So we're going to go File, New, and we're going to create a background that is 2048 by 2048. Now, is this a massive waste of fucking memory? It sure fucking is. But the thing is that I don't know any other way to make this happen. And we just want to get the goddamn thing working. We don't want to worry too much about, are we doing it the correct way? We just want the damn thing to work, right? So now that we have this, let's just go, into here like this. And let's just go adjustments, invert colors. That way we have kind of like this little grid cell, right? So we know this is 0, 0, and this is 2048, 2048, right? So that we know kind of where the bounds are without question. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to save this. I'm going to go to my title screen here. Because I don't know where this is going to end up. We're going to go File, we're going to go Save As, and that's okay. So we're going to go to our bottom monitor here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go sr git repos businessman Dan, and then inside our businessman Dan folder, we're going to go into this fuck this folder, apb002 attempt parallax background number 2. We're going to make a new folder. This new folder is going to be ASS for assets, and then we're going to call this clouds 2048 by, let's just call it 2048, right? Assume that all of our stuff is square. We're going to just assume that all of our textures are square. So we're not going to call it 2048 by 2048. We're just going to call it clouds 2048 because we're going to assume that as we work on this project that everything is going to be completely square, right? Okay, so clouds 2048.png, and we're going to save that, and then we're going to close this. Don't save, all right? So now that we have that, we can take our project, and we need to add, I know we need to add like a sprite to this, right? So let's go add a child node, and it's going to be a sprite 2D. And a sprite 2D is basically just something for rendering graphics that are not in a fixed position, right? A chunk of graphics that can be rendered at any arbitrary position on screen, as opposed to like a tile map, which the graphics have to be rendered in fixed areas on like a grid, right? So we're going to use sprite 2D here, and we're going to hit create, and then we're going to rename this to sprite 2D, and we could call it sprite 2D clouds. Yeah, let's go rename that sprite 2D clouds. All right. Actually, no, I'm going to call it S2D clouds, sprite 2D clouds, right? S2D clouds for sprite 2D clouds. And now we need to add like some type of texture. So I see over here we have a texture thing that says empty. We're going to click on it. And the thing with this is like, this really fucking confused the fuck out of me last time, because I'm like, oh god, which one of these do I pick? It turns out we don't pick any of these. That confuses the fuck out of me. We don't pick any of these. We do quick load, right? Or we probably could do load, but let's just do quick load, right? If we do quick load, we see assets clouds 2048.png. Let's go open that. Bam! Okay, now we have what we actually want here. So now with this, I believe I would like this to be at kind of like a 0, 0 here, right? I don't know if I can use my mouse to move this, or not the mouse, but can I use the arrow keys to move this around? Yeah, I can. So if we are at 7, 1 here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Oh no, that must be relative, huh? So we can mouse wheel in here, I guess. There has to be a better way to do this, right? There has to be a better way to transform this. So let's look at the offset. Okay, well, the offset is 0, 0. If I move this, does the offset change? Okay, so that offset obviously is not the XY. So animation, region, transform. Okay, so this transform seems to be doing something. And, it looks like we know our texture is 2048 by 2048, so because I'm seeing 1024 by 1024, I'm going to assume that it must be, it must think that the center point, that we're using like an origin in the middle, yeah. So the question is, how do we get that origin to be at the top left? So let's zero this out, right? Because that doesn't really make sense to me, right? I get how that, it sometimes makes sense to do things that way, but for this, I don't think that makes any shit sense. So transform, region, animation, offset. I guess we could put an offset to it, right? To get it not in the middle. process. So it looks like the only way we can really get that to be in the middle is, I'm going to guess, if we put a 1024. Right? Yeah, if we put a 10... Yeah, so I don't fucking like that. But if that's how we want to do it, to get that at the origin, right? So I just think that's going to be easier to understand. Maybe it won't be. Okay, so now that we have the sprite, let's go into the parallax layer. Let's go at motion. And mirroring, we actually want to do, like, I believe we just want to mirror it, like, a hell of a lot of times. Oh, is mirroring, like, the size? So mirroring would be 2048, and then 2048. Yeah, so that's kind of confusing, because you look at mirroring, and you think it's, oh, the number of duplicates. But it's not, right? So remember what I was talking about earlier? Like, I didn't know if it was gonna, like, make one extra copy or four extra copies, or sorry, one extra copy or 3 extra copies. It looks like the answer is 3 extra copies. So we have one copy for mirroring on the X, or parallax on the X, another for parallax on the Y, and then another one here for parallax XY, right? So X offset, Y offset, and diagonal offset. Okay, so looking at the parallax layer, mirroring is for the duplication. Yes, that is fucking confusing. Now, I don't remember what scale and offset are for, but we might want to look at those, because chances are that motion scale, motion offset, and motion mirroring do something completely different than what you think they would be doing, because the names make absolutely no fucking sense. Because I remember this. And that is that parallax layer or parallax background here? Okay, so first of all, why is this on the wrong fucking... Oh my fucking god. Okay, so that's fucking stupid. Okay, so Godot booted up on the wrong... Okay, there we go. Now my tab is on the correct fucking screen. Okay, so we're in parallax layer right here. So let's go here. Let's go parallax layer. Let's search for parallax layer in the documentation. And let's go grab onto this. Okay, parallax layer, right? So we have motion mirroring, motion offset, and motion scale right here, right? See how it says motion underscore mirroring, motion underscore offset, motion underscore scale. These properties right here that we're looking at right here, these properties... in the parallax layer HTML documentation that we got from right here by searching parallax layer up in here, right? We went parallax layer, hit enter. We hit these search results right here, right? We hit these search results right here. And then, yeah, so scrolling down, right, this stuff right here. That in the UI is actually these things: scale, offset, and mirroring. So it seems like motion is like a, it's like a namespace: motion underscore scale, motion underscore offset, motion underscore mirroring, right? So if it doesn't make sense that it says motion mirroring, motion offset, and motion scale, I think the reason the name makes no fucking sense is because it's like a namespace. Okay, so property descriptions. Motion mirroring. Okay, so the parallax layers texture 2D repeating. Useful for creating an infinite scrolling background. If an axis is set to 0, texture 2D will not be repeated. Okay, so motion mirroring is like the number of copies, I guess. No, because motion mirroring ended up being the offset, right? Motion mirroring is the fucking offset, right? Like, why is this called offset, but the mirroring is actually the offset, right? So motion mirroring... Yeah, so the length of the viewport if the length of the viewport axis is bigger than twice the repeated axis size, it will not repeat infinitely, as the parallax layer only draws 2 instances of the texture at any given time, right? Well, this is a lie. It doesn't draw 2 instances. It's drawing 4 instances as far as I'm concerned here, right? But if we're on only one axis, then that would be true, but we're on 2 different axes here. Despite its name, texture will be not mirrored, simply repeated. So this name makes absolutely no fucking sense. This name really would make sense at being called offset. Now, what is offset? Parallax layers offset to the parent parallax backgrounds, parallax background.scroll offset. Not sure what that means. Motion scale. Motion scale. Oh, so it's like, this is probably like a multiplier. Motion offset is probably like a multiplier. Or it's an offset. It's an offset applied to whatever was inherited from Parallax background. I think that's what it means, right? So that way you can have a whole bunch of children. You can modify one Parallax background scroll property here in the offset, and then all these other ones can have an extra offset applied to that, and then you only have to animate one thing at a time, and then all the animations are linked together. That's what I'm guessing motion offset is for. Motion scale. Okay, multiplies the parallax layer's motion. Okay, so there's offset, which is like a starting amount to be offset from the main animation layer. Not main animation layer. The main parallax background layer. And then there's a multiplier. Okay, so that makes sense. So the scale needs to be 1 for that. Otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So the scale is 1. Offset is 0. So then in the parallax background here is probably where we want to set the offset, right? So we probably need to attach some type of script to get this to animate. Let's go Control-Alt-Shift-S to save everything really quick. And that didn't really quite work for me. Save all scenes. Okay, so now we're good. Let's just play this and see what happens, right? We want to select the current scene, and it's asking us to save it. We're going to call it Node.2D world. Right here, the res folder, which is kind of the root of our attempt parallax background 2 project. Let's go save. Okay, so now, okay, so we have something, right? We have the top left of our repeating texture that we want. That looks good. So now the question is, how do we animate it? So if we go into parallax background, I think parallax background would be where we want to put the script. So we're going to right click, and there should be something called attach script. Yes, there is. And what do we want to call it? So parallax background, all capitals, .gd for Godot script. Okay, sure, that sounds good to me. Let's go create it. And okay, so we have this, and then I believe in the process, this is like, yeah, called every frame. So we want to do the offset. I believe it's the offset. So is it not offset, but it's scroll offset? We better look in that. So is it scroll offset or is it just offset? So, well, we know that there's a parallax background, right? So let's look at the documentation. Parallax background. All right, so here's the properties. Scroll base offset, scroll base scale, scroll ignore camera zoom, scroll limit begin, scroll limit end, scroll offset. So I think scroll offset, the base position for all parallax layer children. Okay. So it seems like scroll offset is what we want. The parallax background scroll value calculated automatically when using camera 2D, but can be used to manually manage. Okay, so if we are using, because we are not using a camera right now, we have to directly modify this. And if we were using a camera, then scroll offset would be like auto-magically modified by the camera 2D here, is what I'm assuming. But we don't have a camera. So scroll offset dot x plus equals 1. So there's no plus plus, but there should be, oh god, offset dot y plus equals 1. Okay, so let's try that. Parse error. Use space character for indentation instead of tab. Well, my fucking god. Oh my god, this is why I don't fucking like Python. Oh my fucking god. Okay, so let's just try to run that. Okay, so that's going in the direction I didn't think it was going to go in. It's going in exactly the opposite direction I thought it was going to go in. Because I thought, like, advancing forward would make it... Okay, sure, whatever. So we want the y, so we're not going to do anything with the x, right? We're not going to move it on the x. We're just going to move it on the y. And I don't know which direction that'll go. Let's just watch it. We know it's just going to move on the y, but it's probably going to be... So if we're falling down, the clouds would be going upwards. So this is not in the correct direction. So let's close this. And let's do minus equals 1. And then make the clouds... right, the clouds are going up because you are falling, right? Okay, so going back over to here, why don't we go play this really quick? Right? Okay, there we go. So now we have the clouds, and they're falling, infinitely looping. Good, good, good. So we actually have this working now, right? So now the next question is, what can we kind of mess around with, right? So how do we make this work with like a camera? Like, I have no fucking clue how to get a camera working here. Now, because I don't know how to get a camera working, I think that we should actually stop this recording, and we should... what should we do? Okay, I'm going to stop this recording because I think that we got far enough here, and the rest of the stream I'm going to dedicate to studying, because we have 33 minutes left, right? So we have a half an hour left, and usually I want to do like 1 hour of study, 1 hour of coding. But we're at kind of a weird point where, like, tomorrow I think I want to try adding a camera in and getting the camera to work properly. So I'm going to go to my title screen here. So Parallax background number 2. We did get a Parallax background, but next time we try a Parallax background, we're going to want to try to get it to work with the camera. So we got a basic Parallax background, but I want to get it to work with the camera next time. I'm going to stop the recording. So stopping the recording right now.